All right, everyone, let's take a look at some really cool newer rare champions that have been added to the game that you definitely might want to consider taking to level 60 and 6-star if you are looking to fill certain roles on your team. So with that being said, let's head over to the index so I can show you guys this list of 5 champions. And we're going to start off with number 1, and he is indeed going to be a dwarf. So we are going to be looking at Bulwark. So we have a Void Rare Dwarf, and we're going to start off with the skill number 1. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 15% chance of placing a 15% weaken debuff for 2 turns. And as you can see from the possible skill books, you can indeed increase his debuff chance as well. And this is an absolutely phenomenal skill 1. You've got a whole lot going for it. First of all, it attacks twice, which is good. You always want more attacks for those Giant Slayer procs. Second of all, you have a auto attack A1 skill that has an attached weaken debuff to it for 2 turns as well, which is absolutely incredible. Weaken is an incredibly strong debuff, and to have it on a rare champion and to have it on their auto attack is absolutely insane. Not only that, but this is a defense scaling champion, which I know I've talked about before, but once again, a little refresher. You want defense or HP scaling champions. Typically, you want those before an attack scaling champion. And the reason is because not only are defenses in this case going to increase your defense, but you're going to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, because you're also going to increase their offense capabilities because their damage is going to scale from a defensive stat. So that's another good thing that he has going for him. So overall, an absolutely phenomenal skill 1. Now we move on to skill 2. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing an HP burn debuff for 2 turns. Now HP burn is similar to poison, but definitely has its differences. HP burn, you're not going to want more than 1 of them on your team, so it is definitely still a role that you're going to want to fill, especially for the clan boss. You just want to make sure that you don't have more than 1 champion that has that HP burn effect, because it is not going to stack like poisons do. However, it is still incredibly strong and incredibly good, so this is definitely going to be a very, very solid skill 2. And as you can see with the skill books, even though it looks like a lot of skill books are needed as well, remember that these are all rare champions, which means you do not need epic or legendary books. You can use those much easier to acquire rare skill books in order to skill these guys up. So you're going to be able to increase that buff debuff chance quite a bit as well with those skill books and lower its cooldown by 1 turn. Then you have his 3rd skill here, which is a passive, very, very unique, very interesting. When attacked, has a 30% chance of extending the duration of all debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn. So that's very unique, really cool to have that on a rare, with the combination of his absolutely phenomenal skill 1, his very good HP burn skill 2, and this unique debuff. You also have an added 17% allied defense aura in all battles as well, which is nice. You know, it's not amazing, but it's a pretty useful aura to have on a rare. You're looking at a very, very strong champion overall, especially for a rare. This guy is definitely somebody that you're going to want to take a look at bringing to level 60. Now, one little note to keep in mind before we move on to champion number 2 is even though he is a Void champion, if you guys are watching this video very early on, there is an opportunity to get him right now in this tournament. Again, it'll have to be very shortly after this video is uploaded to get this guy, but you can get him if you get 2,000 points in this champion chase tournament. Some people say it's worth it because he's really, really good. I'm leaning more on the other side just because he is still a rare, and in order to get 2,000 points, that's a lot, especially to those of you guys who are free to play or you don't really spend a lot of money on the game. You're looking at having to summon the equivalent of 8 epic champions from shards in order to get enough points to get this guy. Once again, he is still a rare, so you're looking at summoning roughly 8 epics to end up getting 1 rare in return. That's a lot of summons, that's a lot of shards, and especially to those of you guys who are saving up for the next champion chase tournament needed for the fusion event, or if you guys are saving your shards for a double rates event, it's a lot of resources to use to just get 1 rare. So, you know, it might be worth it to you. If you guys are watching, you really, really want this guy, that option is available at least for a few more hours, but for most people, I would still generally advise against it. Alright, so that is going to be champion number 1. Now let's move on to champion number 2, and this is also going to be a dwarf, and we are going to be looking at Runic Warder, which is going to be this guy right here. Now, he's not a Void champion, which is nice, which means you can just get him from any old Ancient Shards, and if you get really lucky, you can even end up getting him from Mystery Shards. And very similarly to what I just said with the Bulwark, there is an opportunity to get him as an actual drop from a dungeon. He's actually going to be the champion that you can end up getting from Fire Knights right now. It's this guy right here. If you guys are watching this video during this limited time fusion, you're going to need a copy of him for the fusion either way. But if you decide not to go for the fusion, or maybe you get really lucky and you get 2 copies of him, he's actually not a bad champion. Now, at first glance, you might be a little bit confused. Whoa, really? Runic Warder? Well, let's take a look at his skills, and you guys will see a little bit why I am talking about this guy. So first of all, once again, very similar to Bulwark, he is an HP scaling champion, which is generally going to be better than attack scaling champions because you can knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. HP is not only going to increase his survivability, but it's also going to increase his damage. So we have his skill 1, which honestly, not really too special. It doesn't have any extra debuffs, buffs, utility on it. It's just going to be a plain old attacks 1 enemy 2 times. It is nice that at least it is 2 times for the Giant Slayer proc, but still, it's just a plain old, nothing too special about the A1. It's not until we get into his second and his third skills where he starts to get pretty good. Alright, so here we go. We have this skill right here, attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. And as you can see from the possible skill books, you can indeed increase this debuff chance. So he does have that decrease attack debuff on his second skill, which is a role that is probably going to need to be filled in a lot of situations in the game. So he's going to be able to accomplish filling that role right there. So it's always nice to have a strong decrease attack debuff, and that's going to be on his skill 2 right there. And you have his third skill, which is really, really good. And honestly, this skill is super interesting. Rune of Outlasting. So, places a 15% reflect damage buff and a 7.5% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. And you can see this can be double skill booked to lower the cooldown down from 5 turns all the way to 3. This is a really, really good skill. So you have that continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. Not quite going to be as good as the other version of continuous heal, which is 15%, but it is still something. But you also have that reflect damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Now, this is situational. There are some instances where reflect damage is going to be a lot better than others, but just at a quick refresher, you know, Fire Knights, it's going to be super, super useful to get those extra hits in to lower his shield whenever he attacks. So overall, you're looking at a really, really cool, really useful, overall super high utility skill 3. And when you add it up, even though he does have a relatively weak skill 1, he does have a good skill 2 and this really unique skill 3, you're definitely looking at somebody who I would easily say is going to be worth taking to level 60. And he's got a 103 base speed as well, which is absolutely crazy. So definitely not a bad champion, not somebody that you want to completely end up overlooking. Alright, so that is going to be number 2, and now we're going to move on to number 3. Now this is going to be the only champion that has overlap with my other videos, and the reason is because, first of all, she is newer to the game, and second of all, she really is that good. Definitely somebody worth talking about, even if it is again, and that is going to end up being Reliquary Tender. So that is going to be, she's going to end up being a High Elf. So High Elves, she is a rare, she is a void rare, so she is going to be a bit more difficult to get now that you cannot get her from that event anymore. But if you do manage to stumble across her, she is an absolutely fantastic rare. And I would say probably out of the 5 rares that I'm talking about in this video, she's going to be either number 1, maybe number 2. Definitely probably the top 2 in this video though, because she has one skill that completely outweighs them all. So we've got her auto attack A1 right here, attacks 1 enemy, has a 20% chance of placing a 25% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. Always nice to have something like a debuff on an auto attack, you know? When it comes to auto attacks, you're just looking for more than the bare basics. The bare basics would just be, you know, attack 1 enemy 1 time, right? So you want more attacks, you want utility, you want buffs, you want debuffs. Anything extra is going to be good. So just having that decreased attack debuff on the auto attack, and you can see it can be boosted with those skill tomes to make it quite a bit better. Definitely something that is going to be good and overall makes this auto attack pretty solid. Now we move on to the second skill, and this is what is going to make Reliquary Tender absolutely phenomenal. Removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a 15% continuous heal buff on them for 2 turns. And as you can see, you can book it twice to lower the cooldown down to 3 turns. So you just have an overall phenomenal skill 2. You do have that stronger version of continuous heal, which is going to be stronger compared to the last champion that I talked about. So that is obviously going to be good. But topped with that removes all debuffs from all allies with this continuous heal is incredible. This is just going to make it a phenomenal skill, and this skill alone is definitely going to make this one of the best rare champions in the game. And it's just an added bonus that she is newer, so somebody I can talk about again in a video like this. We have her third skill here, Call to Life, revives an ally with 30% HP and fills their turn meter by 30%. You can book it once to lower it to a 5-turn cooldown. Situational, decent, nothing fantastic, but you have a reasonable skill 3, a pretty good skill 1 auto attack, and of course her absolutely godly skill 2. Overall going to make her an absolutely fantastic rare champion with, once again, a very high base speed of 103 as well. So that is going to be Reliquary Tender. All right, now we are moving on to number 4, and we're actually going to venture back into the Dwarves. And I know that is a theme among a lot of these champions, and that is because the Dwarves are a newer faction, and I feel like Plarium really tried to, they kind of understood, and even though a lot of the epic and the legendary Dwarves, they still need some work, I feel like they got a lot of the rare Dwarves right, which is why a lot of these, if you do come across them, they actually are going to be worth considering taking to level 60. So we are going to be taking a look at this guy right here, and that is going to be Grumbler. Now, once again, like Runic Warder, you might be like, what? This guy, what's so special about him? Well, let's take a look at his skills, and you guys might see why this guy stands out a little bit from a lot of the other rares in the game. So once again, you have an HP champion, which always going to be better. I would say, once again, defense is going to be probably the best, then HP, and then attack. Generally speaking, of course, that's not going to be true for absolutely everyone. So we've got a skill 1 right here, and this is an absolutely insane skill 1, and you guys will see why in a second. So it looks not super great at first glance, attacks one enemy, places a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of their max HP for 2 turns. Now this skill is also going to scale off of HP and off of defense as well. So this guy, you're going to want to build him very, very tanky, lots of HP, lots of defense wherever you can. And as you can see, you can actually book this skill to increase the efficiency and the capability of that shield buff as well. And once again, rare books, you don't need epics or legendaries. It's just going to make booking all of these champions a lot easier. So you've got a champion that you're building for a ton of HP anyway, and you also now have a buff that is going to give him a shield on his auto attack. Now this doesn't have a cooldown. You can use this skill every single turn. Now if you build this guy right with the right gear and you have him just have a ton of HP, that is going to be a consistent shield that you can end up applying to this guy pretty much every single turn, apart from when he uses his other skills. That is going to make him incredibly beefy, incredibly tanky, and again, because his skills scale from HP and defense, not only is that going to make him very tanky, but that is also going to make him do a decent amount of damage as well. So overall, this is just an absolutely phenomenal skill 1. At first glance, you might not necessarily think it is, but when you kind of think about it a little bit more, I definitely feel like this is going to be one of the stronger / strongest A1 auto attacks that you can end up finding on a rare champion. Now let's move on to skill 2. Attacks one enemy, places a 50% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. This skill, unfortunately, is not super fantastic because when it comes to heal reduction, there are plenty of champions out there who can place a 100% heal reduction, so it's just kind of like a weaker version of that. Still going to be useful in some situations, but generally, unfortunately, this is just not really going to be one of the better skills or one of the big reasons that makes this champion super strong, but it is still something extra added to the table there, and once again, it is going to scale off of HP and defense. Then you have his third skill, which is definitely very interesting. Once again, you can double book this skill like a lot of the skills that are really good in this video. You can double book them to lower the cooldown from 5 turns all the way down to 3. And you have places a 25% ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns. Places a 30% increase defense buff on this champion for 2 turns. So this is a very synergy type skill because you have a lot of things that really work together with this champion. You have his shield on his auto attack, which is great. Plus, this champion overall scales from HP, which is just going to make not only his damage, but his overall survivability and his skills even work better together. Then you have this skill right here, which is going to give him an increased defense buff. It is a weaker version of it, but still, that means he's going to take even less damage. And then, of course, you have that ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns. This skill has a 3-turn cooldown, not a 5-turn cooldown when you double book it. And overall, this guy is just going to be super tanky, super just, you know, lots of HP, lots of survivability, and his skills work really, really well together. So, you know, he doesn't really necessarily bring a lot to the table in terms of debuffs or buffs. Yeah, he has that increased defense buff for himself, so it might be a bit difficult to end up slotting this guy in a lot of late game teams, but for earlier on, if you're just looking for a really, really tanky guy overall, with his fantastic skill 1, this guy is definitely going to be somebody worth considering. You also have a increased ally HP in dungeons by 25% aura. Unfortunately, his speed is a little bit on the lower side, but this guy, if you're looking for a tank, he's definitely a consideration to make for a rare. All right, so that is going to be number 4, and now number 5, once again going to be another dwarf, and it is going to end up being this guy right here. So we have Honor Guard. So he's going to be Force. Grumbler was magic, so the good news is a lot of these are not going to be voids. Problem with voids is even though they are rare, they are still void, which means you're not going to be able to get them from mystery shards or ancient shards. You have to pull exclusively from void shards or maybe get lucky and find one in an event like we have going on right now. But this guy is a Force champion. He is another defensive champion, which is good. Now let's take a look at his skills here. All right, we have attacks one enemy has a 50% chance of placing a 25% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns if the target has no active buffs. Now, keep that in mind as we move into the other skills. At first glance, doesn't really seem like a super solid skill 1 because you only have attacks one enemy 1 time, which is generally, again, you want more attacks if possible for those masteries. His skill books aren't going to increase the actual chance of placing the debuff. 25% decrease accuracy it's still a good debuff, but I would say decreased attack and decreased defense are probably still going to be better and outweigh it a little bit, but keep this in mind as we move into some of his other skills. All right, Fate Transfer. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of stealing 2 random buffs from the target. And as you can see, you can end up booking this to increase its effectiveness quite a bit. Not only is it going to lower the cooldown by a turn, making it a 3-turn cooldown skill, but you also increase the debuff chance. This is a very interesting skill. Situational, of course. Not every application in the game are you going to be able to use this skill to its full effect, but there are going to be plenty of instances where this skill is going to end up being a game changer for certain battles. As you can see, stealing random buffs from the target is going to come in very, very handy in certain instances. So this is a strong, strong skill. And also, when you factor in the stealing buffs from the target, it also kind of makes the A1 skill a bit more effective as well. And now we move into his 3rd skill, which is also fantastic. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. You can lower the cooldown down to 4 turns. You can also increase the buff debuff efficiency. Once again, this champion has a lot of possible skill books, but because he's a rare, you don't have to use those valuable epic or legendary skill books. So it's going to be based on defense, and overall this guy is mostly a utility champion, and once again, he's not going to be useful in every situation, but you can see in situations where debuffs are going to end up being a problem on your enemies, this is going to be a fantastic champion to slot into your team. You have that chance of stealing buffs from his skill 2, you have this block buffs for his skill 3, and you also have this auto attack, which, you know, not the best auto attack, not really the thing that he brings to the table that makes him the strongest, but it does synergize with his other skills a little bit, considering that the debuff activates when he has no buffs on the target. So overall, situational, yes, not going to be amazing in every case, but if you're looking for somebody that needs to end up applying those block buffs, and also somebody that's going to be a game changer from stealing buffs from a target in certain fights, if you don't have an epic that can already kind of do things similar to that, this is definitely going to be a rare worth considering instead. So if you guys noticed, 4 out of these 5 champions were actually dwarves. And once again, I really feel like by the time they introduced dwarves, they understood that rares are, they're out there. Now, the difference between rares and epics is rares generally, even though they can be very, very good, a lot of the times rares are out there to fill a very specific role, whereas epics, you kind of get into the territory now where they can really be used a lot more generally in the game. But if you take a look at rares for what they are, and you go back and you take a look at these 5 champions that we talked about, they are very strong for the situations that they are meant to be built. So if you guys have some of these rares lying around that I mentioned in this video, and you are still looking to fill certain roles in certain instances, definitely going to be worth considering this list of 5 champions here. So thought I would go over it, and of course I'm always on the lookout for really cool, interesting rares. So, you know, depending on how you guys like this video, if it helps out, if we find some more cool rares in the future, I'll definitely let you guys know any kind of stuff like this. So I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed this video and that it helped out. If you did enjoy this video and you want more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you again for all the support, everyone. And once again, if you liked it and you have a quick second and you want to help out, tossing a like means a whole bunch. So thank you to those of you guys who do that as well. With that all being said, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.